times. And we're more focusing on the grammar, okay? So we want them to learn the skill of grammar, and we're going to do that by learning Latin, okay? So it looks at it that way. It doesn't say we're going to master Latin, okay? Because then you're limited to Latin. If you learn the skill of grammar, you will learn Spanish, you will learn French, you will learn many other languages, because we've actually taught you how to learn and use grammar by taking the hardest language there is, which is Latin. And that's the only reason she chose it. It's because it's hard. And it does test your English grammar. So if you're rough in the English grammar, that's why Essentials is a key piece to being successful in Latin. And you can still do Latin without Essentials, but if you have a child, or you yourself as the parent, is sitting in your Essentials class and doing grammar with your student every week, you are our next challenge directors. You will be equipped to teach Latin. You'll have the skills that you need just by learning English grammar. And I know that's hard for you to imagine, but it really is true. Exposition and composition, that's our writing and literature strand. Okay, so we use Lost Tools of Writing, and Challenge A and B will be moving that up to Challenge 1 as well. And so those 3 years are going to be focused on Lost Tools of Writing, and that's just the writing curriculum we're going to use alongside our literature. Okay, and each year our literature is geared towards a type of history. So we have American literature, we have British Lit in Challenge 2, poetry and Shakespeare, and then ancient literature in Challenge 4. Okay, so our debate strand, okay, that is geography, our cultural events, and then that's where we do our government or economics. That's our history strand. Okay, so debate, it's a funny name to call it. However, that's exactly what you do when you have conversations about history. Debate not in a negative way where you're debating somebody for truth or whatever. I struggled with geography being a part of that strand, and I'd be interested, does anybody know why geography would be the first strand the first subject you would want to cover?
Well, because when you study the history of all these countries, and you don't know where any of them are, then it'll be really hard to really have a good handle on discussing them.
Right.
But if you know where everything is, and
Right.
it stays with you.
It does. So tell them what they do in Challenge A.
Yeah, so we start with North America. Well, I don't know if that's changed, but I think you start with North America, and you spend, they draw a map every day, so the first couple weeks they're drawing North America every day, and the South goes on. I think the whole month of November and December is Europe, and then in the second semester Asia and Australia and Oceania. And they're drawing a map every day at home of that one continent. And then at the end of the year, they put it all together and draw the whole world without, just from scratch on one piece of paper. And cover it.
It is hard.
I had a student my first year doing A, and she got perfect. She got every country, every capital, including spelling. Perfect. And features.
And features, I was going to say.
Yeah, perfectly. She said, that wasn't that hard. Just was really good at memorizing.
Well,
But
and
when
the
you
thing
know
is,
all that, then you're more able and equipped to discuss history and government or anything.
right. So, Foundations Director, what do you do in Foundations with your students each week?
For geography, well, they trace the maps and they point to where the states are and the capitals and the topography of the mountains and
Right.
everything. Yeah.
So all the features. So, I mean, clearly kids that have been through all 3 cycles and go to geography and Challenge A, it's a pretty easy seminar because they've already spent 3 years doing that exact thing in Foundations Essentials. So, while you don't need that, also, Lauren and Gabe did not get a chance to do the map. They didn't do geography. Elijah did. And the funny story, if you ever want to impress the in-laws, if you're having a hard time selling them on classical conversations or homeschooling in general, sit them down and have them draw that map for memory, and they are astounded at what your child knows. Elijah, the year after the challenge, the Summer Olympics that year, and it was the parade of countries, the real boring part of the Olympics where they walk out with their flags. And Elijah thought it would be fun to, every time a country came out, he would run over to the globe and find it and say the capital. And he could do that for almost every country that came around that circle. And my in-laws, "Now, what are you doing with them again?" You know, and I had been doing it for 4 years, you know, or, well, 2 years, that was my second year. So it's a great way to impress, for sure. But that's not why we do it. We don't do it to puff ourselves up, right? I mean, God created the world, and to know it just knows Him. It knows Him more. So, oh, you know what? I think my computer died. Okay, so we take that. I'll multitask here. Our research strand, that's going to be our science. So science is just the study of research. It's researching God's creation. Challenge A and B is really a classical way to do science. They do a science journal. They write, they draw pictures, they label parts of the body. They will be able to draw the entire body and label all parts by the end of the year. Now, they don't do all of that at once. They take it in sections. They draw different insects, so they learn all about cells, and they make their own just notebook of science. And it's a wonderful thing, a wonderful way to do science. And it's different. We don't have a textbook in Challenge A and B. And then Challenge 1, we do apology of science through that. And it's really, it's not a classical approach necessarily, but it is a Christian approach to science. And Christian curriculum for science is hard to come by, so that's why we use that. Rhetoric, that is our, where we do formal logic, reasoning, and then we do the philosophy. That's where they read plays, Shakespeare. We do advanced philosophy, and then in Challenge 4, they dive into theology there with Jesus Among Other Gods with Ravi Zacharias. So it's a wonderful, just kind of, it's that thinking strand, okay? It's nothing, I mean, rhetoric, again, that doesn't really go on a transcript. They don't even, none of the colleges really cared about them having logic. That wasn't, I could do it as an elective, but I know the NCAA, I had to get Elijah's cleared through the clearinghouse. They didn't allow me to include my theology credit and my logic credit. They said it was just unnecessary. So I'm like, okay, but I'm sure glad we got formal logic and theology, so it was important to me. So that's the thinking strand. That's where your kids are going to have discussions. They're going to be performing different things and really discussing philosophies of the world and how it lines up with the biblical worldview. And then our logic strand, that's our math strand. And the directors use Saxon Math just to kind of guide the discussion in math. We're really trying to, we focused a lot this year on how to make math conversational, because all of you have students in different places of math. And that makes it really difficult in the day of seminar for our directors, and you can probably agree with this, that if kids are in different pages of the book or they're doing a whole different curriculum, how can we still make our math seminar valuable? And we do it through conversation, just like we do talking through literature. So we're doing a little bit more of equipping of our directors to allow that conversation to happen so that it's not so focused on problems, it's more focused on concepts, that if somebody is in a place where they're already factoring equations or doing something, balancing equations with factoring, you can have the discussion all beginning with fractions and then talking through the steps. So you can make it conversational. It doesn't have to be, okay, do this problem on the board. Now, some of it might be that. I know in our Challenge 2 class, everybody was in a different spot, and it was really talking about just concept. Okay, what concept did you struggle with this week? And they would say, well, I had a real hard time with, such and such. And another student said, oh, I did too, and I figured out this way, and they would go up to the board and show them a new way to solve this problem. So it ended up being very interactive. But we are still using, as kind of a textbook guide for our directors, the Saxon Math, and each week, that's the concepts that we will be introducing. But you can do math in a different curriculum if Saxon isn't for you. So that's another great thing about that, is you can be doing something different at home and still have that valuable conversation in class. So that's what we mean by our strands. Now, if I were to go, I want to go into each strand and tell you each level, so each challenge level, we're going to start with challenge A, and I just want to hit some highlights of what we do in each of those challenge levels, what your kids will be doing. I know that's really hard to read. But just starting with challenge A, the focus here is ownership. And in the new catalog, on the scope and sequence, it does tell you the guiding theme for that year. So we have great academics, but what I love is we like to go deeper. Okay, so we're talking about virtue. Okay, so the virtue or the character trait of owning what you do. Our kids are at an age, in 7th grade, they know how to read directions, they know how to read the guide, they know what's expected of them. So it's sitting down and really just giving them the tools to be able to manage their time well and take ownership of their schoolwork. I sat next to Elijah for most of the first semester every day, as he went through. I got up on some occasions. If he's drawing his map, I don't need to sit down next to him. But we would sit down, our seminar met on Mondays, and so Monday evening we would sit down with the CC had this curriculum planner, and so we used that, and I had him write down his week, write out his week, what he was going to be doing in each subject. He fought me on that because it's written in the guide for him, but I said, but unless you write it down, it doesn't become your own, so you're going to write it. And so we would look through it. I would help him identify, because sometimes that, we need to identify what you have to do. And then he would write it down in his week, and we had our plan. For Tuesday, we hit the ground running. We knew exactly what to do each day. And then Friday, we would evaluate. What did we get done? What do we need to work on over the weekend? So I gave him the tools. I sat with him. I did it with him. Because I can't expect him to know how to do it if I don't model it for him. So we modeled that. And then the second semester, I purposefully started to let him write his own, okay, go downstairs and write your plan and I'll look at it tomorrow morning. And we would look, and he always got the first 2 things, and there was then always one missing that didn't make it to his sheet. I said, well, you do have to do this, remember? So it was just that time of refining, but I gave him some freedom to do that. And by the end of the year, he planned out his week, and beginning, it didn't always work, and I always said, we will meet on Tuesday mornings and then Friday mornings. And I was there at the house, it's not like I left, but Friday mornings I would look and see, what do you have left to do? Okay, if you can finish that all today, great. If not, guess what? You're not going to this weekend, you're not going to, you won't get to do on the weekend what you want to do if your work's not finished. And so it was a good system, it worked for us. You develop a system at this point in your child's education. They need to begin to take ownership. You can't do everything for them moving forward. And had I not done that with him, I put a lot of pressure on myself for my kids getting their work all complete for every seminar, because I was the state manager of Georgia, and I felt that was an expectation on me, and it was very difficult. The challenge guide is exactly that. It is a guide. How many of you always have 100% of kids come prepared? Okay, and it is a little frustrating, okay? So some kids are just doing it because they're lazy and their parents aren't checking their work. All right, so parents can't drop out of this. You can't put it all on your child, because the quote is, you can't expect what you won't inspect. And if I didn't inspect him on Friday, I couldn't expect it to be done for Monday, because I didn't check it. I didn't hold him accountable. Our kids need to be held accountable.